Cannizzaro, welcome. Thanks for being part of our member spotlight.
Thanks
How
for
are you
having
doing?
me. Doing well. Thank you, Dan.
Milestone Plumbing. So
Yes.
this is your company, correct?
Correct.
And you started it when?
2011 was when we officially launched and been in business for 12 years just this past June, so about a month past that date.
Wow, that's doing well.
Yeah.
Now, usually you don't see women in contractor or plumbing or anything like that. What got you involved in doing this type of work?
So daughter of a master plumber. Ironically, Dad turns 80 today, so
Oh, wow.
I just left him
Happy
a
birthday
message
to
wishing
him.
him a happy birthday on my way here. But Dad used to take me along on weekends, summer breaks, and then occasionally on an emergency call. And so at a very young age, I was exposed to the trades. He did not want me to go into the trades. That became an issue later on when he really pushed for me to go to college, which I did. But Dad taught me how to solder at the age of 7 and kind of instilled that mechanical aptitude of loving to work with my hands to see what was built and what was accomplished that ultimately led me in the path to continue.
Wow. What was your progression from starting in the trades to then owning your own business?
So, ironically, I was at school at UW-Milwaukee for business, and my dad suffered from a stroke. And so, in between classes, I started to help him part-time once he was able to go back to work. He had some strength deficiencies, and so I was able to help while my mom was pursuing a nursing degree and kind of instilled that spark back. And so, as soon as I finished my undergrad at UW-Milwaukee, I decided to serve an apprenticeship so I could help Dad with his business. Eventually, he wanted to retire. He was getting a little bit older. He's retired several times, Dan, along the way. So there have been, I think, 3 total. But I moved on to another company to get some additional experience with remodeling and another residential plumbing company that was a little bit larger. Worked there for 5 years, and then ultimately decided to take my background with college and combine that into starting my own venture and building a team.
So what really prompted you to do that?
You know,
Step out of your comfort zone and start your own thing.
the honest answer is there were things sometimes that happened that I didn't always agree with, but I wasn't the employer, so I couldn't make the decisions. And I wanted to create a culture and a company that did things the right way, what I believed was the right way. And I was very passionate about, at the time, being the Google of plumbing companies and creating this really great culture that people would enjoy working in, enjoy giving back, taking really good care of customers with really exceptional service, not being solely focused on what the bottom line is. One thing I joke around about is my dad's idea of cleaning up, and I'm sure he'll probably see this, so I will hear about it, was taking the mess. So you drill holes and you get sawdust, and he would sweep it into a corner, and his idea was he helped the customer because there was one pile that needed to be cleaned up instead of the customer having to sweep everything. Where with our clients, we clean all of it up. And just going that extra mile to make sure that the space is better than when we got there, that's something we really stress with our team. And our team is very passionate and believes in that as well.
So what's changed in the last 12 years? You started this company, you're building this great culture. What have you seen as far as employment goes? How easy has it been to find help, especially fitting in your culture? You have to find the right people, correct?
Correct, and it's not as easy as I thought it was going to be, if I'm being honest. Going from one woman working out of the house and out of a spare bedroom in the garage to we've moved now 3 different times and are in a much bigger building that we purchased about 4 years ago, right before COVID hit. And it's been a little bit of a journey of, I wish I had hired sooner. And I stress that because at the time I was very conservative with growth. And I have been for most of that journey. Wanting to hire employees one at a time, make sure we were training appropriately. And during much of that 12 years, we had lots of resumes coming in. Now we fast forward to the last few years and we know there's a massive labor shortage. And so we've really started to put efforts into focusing on training. That's been going on for probably about 5 years now for our team. We are putting people into pre-apprenticeship roles, youth apprenticeship roles, and bringing them up so that they're learning the culture. We're giving back to the trades. It's a big investment that any employer that does training makes, but it is the way to fix the labor shortage, and it's going to take everybody pitching in to do that.
So how are you finding these people? Where are you looking?
We are in high schools, we're in grade schools, which I know people think is crazy. One thing that I believe is by the time somebody is in high school, they already know what they're going to do. Maybe it's not their final destination, but they know what they're going to pursue after they're done their senior year. that isn't reaching them early enough. So we've started going into grade schools with high interest days, going in as guest speakers. We've worked with Boy Scout troops, Girl Scout troops to try to spark that interest at a much younger age so that they're considering it before they start to make those decisions with their friends. Is there going to be a payoff? We're not going to know for a while. I mean, these kids that I'm reaching now are, eons away from getting to be 16, 17, 18 years old. But if we're sparking that interest early, odds are some of them are going to pursue. And even if it's not plumbing, it may be electrical, it could be welding, it could be any trade that they don't end up with the student loan debt. They don't drop out of college after a year or two. I believe we're having a really positive impact by exposing them at a much younger age.
So you've actually, going with the younger students, I would believe that getting them used to working with their hands, because most of them only work on iPads and computers nowadays, is a totally different experience. What are you seeing when you take these classes to these elementary kids, and what are you having them do?
So in the grade schools, when we do high interest day, we have created games that they play. There's a pipe fitter game with an isometric drawing, and so you're watching, third, fourth, and fifth graders try to read it and put it together. And then anytime you add a component where it's a race, so you have teams of two that are competing, the excitement and seeing the expression on their face, they get really into it. The Boy Scout troop that we just welcomed to our shop a few Saturdays ago came in, and we had different stations. One was a pipe threading station. One was a soldering station. That was the station that I ran. They got to solder several fittings together and learn how to correctly do the feeding of the solder, how to flux, how to clean. And then we also had a really practical one, how to clean a drain with a Milwaukee drain cleaner. And so they literally took the trap off, fed the drain machine down, and pulled it back. And who doesn't benefit from knowing that basic skill? And watching their expressions and how excited they were to do these things, you can tell you're starting to ignite that spark. Now, some of them may not choose to go into it, but does it down the road help them when they purchase a home? Do they consider home ownership instead of renting because they realize that I can do this?
How do you stay in touch with them from that first iteration? I mean, are you making periodic trips to the school to keep in touch?
We do. We get invited back a lot because we bring something that the schools haven't seen before. The only downside is it's very hard to scale because we are one team, so we cannot be in all the schools. We've had a couple of times where schools have had events on the same day. And then also, obviously, we have our own plumbing that we need to be doing on job sites that helps produce the revenue so we can keep our doors open. So trying to balance is sometimes a little bit tricky, but we don't say no very often. And so as long as the school lets us know in advance, and even if I can't physically be the one that goes out, we've got a team of people that are always happy to step up. I think I bring an interesting dynamic because it helps all of those girls that are inside of that classroom see that this is possible. So I try to be at as much as I can. But occasionally I'm out of town for a conference and not able to go. And we've got a great team that's always willing to step up and jump in and also help to ignite that passion.
That's nice. So you've been in business for about 12 years?
Yeah.
How has technology changed? Because you're going to be dealing with some pretty tech-savvy kids that are coming in. They're probably going to look at it and say, well, what do I get to do with computers and plumbing or anything like that? Has technology really changed much for the plumbing industry?
It has, and you would think I would be better at technology than I am. I'm terrible. So a lot of times these younger adults that we're hiring and these kids are showing me how to use the iPad, which I will admit because it's a bit of a challenge at times to figure out how to do things. I am a new Apple iPhone user, and so they're still teaching me tricks with the iPhone that the Droid did not do. And so we've got a lot of access to great technology. You've had sewer cameras for years, and they get excited about running that in because we do a lot of service and repair work. But then our dispatch software, our invoicing software, the ability to take pictures, to take videos for troubleshooting, they get really excited about that. I look back to when my dad had his pager on his belt and we'd have to find a payphone to go make phone calls, and you had to wait for when the wholesale house would open up to order things, and we've come a long way to where we're at today.
Wow. So what would you tell a kid that maybe is starting to think about the trades and wants to get in it? How would you recommend they go about getting involved, whether it's plumbing, electrical, contracting, whatever it might be?
The best investment they can make in that future, because it's going to be many, many years, shadow with multiple companies. We just had a young lady this week. Her name is Bree. She came along, rode with our team of plumbers to a remodel. She spent the whole day with them. At the end of the day, she came back to the shop and she said to me, I had so much fun today. make the investment to check out multiple trades. She's doing an electrical shadow next week, because that 8 hours that you're going to spend just observing, and maybe you get to do a little bit with some tools to see what things feel like, is going to help you decide, is this for me, or is there something maybe better that I should look at? A lot of people decide, I'm going to go into this trade, and they start down that path, and if they don't love it, that's a lot of time to be doing something you're not going to enjoy every single day. So
Completely agree with that.
invest.
I have a nephew that wanted to be an electrician. For about an hour after being an electrician, he decided to switch trades. But that's a good point.
And most of our ABC membership is happy to do a shadow, right? Call them up. We had a young man who thought he wanted to be a plumber, and he took an Uber from a job site after he decided it wasn't for him. And so, and sometimes you're going to realize this is not for me. Better to know now than to invest that time into that future.
And that's also the benefit of something, instead of maybe going to college, if you are interested in the trades, you can try a lot of different things before you get deep into it and spend all this money on tuition and everything else. So that's definitely a plus. Now, something else that's interesting is you're also a board member here.
That's correct.
How long have you been a board member for ABC?
So it's been going on a little over 3 years.
Wow. So in 3 years, from day one of being on the board to now where you're at on the board, tell me what it's been like. What's been your evolution? What have you learned?
So the beginning is like a flood hose. There is so much that you don't, and I'm involved in a lot of different ways. I've been part of ABC for almost 20 years, starting out as an apprentice and then an employer and now being on the board. You don't realize how much this association has to give and provide to add value until you're in a seat where you get to see everything. There were things that I didn't even know we offered. And so the first year was a big learning curve of, wow, we do a lot that I didn't even know about. Now getting more comfortable, been at a lot of events, gotten to know a lot of really great members all over. We were in Randolph last night, right by Beaver Dam. There was a plumbing company there I got to talk to and find out what are their pain points. And so I think my perspective has changed. Now that I've gotten some understanding of what other members' needs are, it helps me keep a lookout for when they're identifying, this is where we're struggling, and hey, maybe this is something our association can look into helping, and maybe we can make changes with things. So it's helped me to keep on my radar what those needs are so we can bring them to the board and discuss them to see if there's something we can do.
That's excellent. Now, not only are you a board member, you're going to be a chair upcoming. What are you hoping to accomplish when you're a chair at ABC?
It's to have an impact, to do something that helps to make the association just a little bit better. I think a lot of times people want to make big changes. We have an association that's doing a great job. We have a staff that does an amazing job. We have a board with really great volunteers that have a passion to give back. And every committee has so many wonderful volunteers. What we're doing is working, but where are the areas that maybe we can help just a little bit? My dad always told me, and it's his birthday today, he's 80, always used to talk about it like a wheelbarrow. He would say to us growing up that anytime you borrow something, you always give it back a little bit better. And he would use the wheelbarrow analogy. So if the wheel is a little bit rocky or the handle is broken or it needs to be painted, you always do something to leave things a little bit better than you found them. Our association is doing great. It doesn't need major shifts, major change, but I would love to be able to, after next year, know that our board, our staff, our committee volunteers were able to make things a little bit better for our membership. And so I'll cultivate and continue to try to harvest that culture and doing and keeping my ears open and my eyes open to try to figure out where are those areas that we could use a little bit more to improve on.
That's great. So with that said, what would you tell somebody that's looking at ABC? Why should they join?
Oh man, there's so many reasons, Dan. So I would not be where I am today without ABC. And ABC knows that, and they've heard me say that all these years. When I went into being an apprentice for my dad's company, didn't know what ABC was. So that was my first experience, learned a lot, working at another company as an apprentice for ABC, eventually starting my own, and Bill, our membership director, brought me on. We signed that contract and we signed up right away and have been a member ever since Milestone was created. I believe in what we do. I believe in the mission. I believe in merit shops. And I think that members sometimes don't realize that we are doing things behind the scenes that often people never even know, whether they're members or not. We are doing our best to make the industry a better place for all construction companies, to make it safer for all of the employees, to help with education, with training, so that companies can be their best. There's just so much out there. And sometimes you don't realize how much there is until you start getting involved, getting on a committee, coming to the events, going to the socials and seeing, and you meet great new partners too. Had made great relationships. We would not be where we're at today with the company without ABC. And that's part of why I give back so much time, is I have so much to be thankful for. We wouldn't be Milestone 12 years in business, 19 employees strong, without having had ABC as a foundation to build on.
That's an excellent testimonial. So Milestone Plumbing, Jessie Cannizzaro, congratulations on everything you've accomplished. Looking forward to much, much more. And thanks for being part of this again. Really appreciate it. How can people get a hold of you if a young aspiring plumber decides that they want to work for you? How can they find you?
So we have a website. So there's a link to do an inquiry at milestoneplumbinginc.com. Also can call our office and just let the office know, hey, I'd like to get in touch with Jess. I'd like to do a shadow. Our team gets calls like that all the time. Number is 414-988-4565. I'm on Facebook. I'm in LinkedIn. Send me a message.
They can find you anywhere.
They can get me anywhere.
All right, Jessie. Thanks again.
Thanks, Dan.
Really appreciate it. Take care.
You too.